Hi there, I'm Tyler Ballhorn. Welcome to the Stock Scores market analysis for March 15th, 2010. This is the first group of stocks that we're going to look at. These are all exchange-traded funds representing some of the important underlying indexes, commodities, and currencies. And this is, of course, the Stock Scores trading desk, which you can get to by going to tradingdesk.stockscores.com. All right, I'm going to jump into the slideshow where we will look at the individual charts of some of these key sectors. I'll go through these fairly quickly because this week I'm actually going to look at some of the exchange-traded funds in more depth. This is, of course, the Dow, the DIA, and you can see that we've had a nice little rally over the last 5 weeks. We're coming up to resistance where we should expect that the market will get stuck and probably grind the way sideways, although, of course, it's possible that we move lower. What is possible is that the market goes higher, but it is not probable. What will probably happen before the market goes higher is that we'll stall. Now, longer term, the market may continue higher, but expect that the market will stall here in the short term. Moving along, this is a chart of the Canadian dollar exchange traded fund, symbol FXC. You can see that we actually dipped through resistance on Friday, and we remain above resistance as of today. And that's encouraging. However, typically when markets rally into resistance, they usually get stuck. And so I expect that we'll see the Canadian dollar pull back a little bit in the short term, but I do like the Canadian dollar long term. It keeps coming back from weakness. It's got this nice optimistic pattern building. And longer term, I think the Canadian dollar is likely to go higher. The gold ETF is more or less stuck in the trading range. We've seen that for some time. It could be argued forming a little head and shoulders bottom here. But of course, with head and shoulder patterns, you need the breakout through resistance to really make it a head and shoulders pattern. This is the chart of oil. Oil has been in a consolidation for a long time. The rising bottoms on the oil chart are a sign of optimism. However, we still haven't broken out of this pattern, and longer term, I think we should expect to see it break out. But in the short term, it just kind of grinds along in this price range. Now, quite truthfully, the price of oil right now is good for oil companies, probably keeps the politicians off their back, and so it's not a bad thing for it to stick around in that $70 to $80 price range. Next chart is the NASDAQ 100. It has managed to break through resistance and onward to new highs, and that is a good sign for the markets longer term. Again, I think that there's a good chance that we see a pullback in the near term, maybe something like that, before it moves higher. But it hasn't really shown the breakdown yet, and so we have to remain optimistic until that breakdown occurs. S&P 500, very similar to the NASDAQ 100, broken through resistance, probably continues higher, although in the short term expect a stall before it moves higher. Canadian market is in a ascending triangle pattern. Let me draw that pattern for you here. We've got rising bottoms towards a flat level of resistance. We're right at resistance now. So what should happen is we should pull back. However, eventually, when stocks are testing resistance, they eventually break out. And we've tested this resistance a number of times over the last 4 or 5 months. And so we should expect that eventually the market's going to break out. But right now, I think it's a good chance it pulls back in the short term. And finally, the US dollar fund, which is, I guess, the US dollar index, all of the foreign currencies relative to the US dollar. The US dollar has been drifting in the last little while. We haven't broken that upward trend line that started building in December, but we've got that little drift lower. I like the US dollar. I think it probably pulls back here and then continues to move higher. Most of the global economies look to the US dollar as a safe haven. You know, if anything goes wrong in the world, people flood into the US dollar. And so I think that the US dollar probably continues to strengthen and should bounce in the very near term. Now, the last thing I'd like to do this week is show you how the trading desk has a number of these stock score sectors that I've set up for you. You can see them here in the right sidebar when you go into the chart watch area. And these are just groups of exchange traded funds that represent some of the important sectors in the market. I like to look at the US sectors because they have a breakdown of the 17 sort of important sectors in the market. For example, this here is the biotechnology sector, and you can see that it has had a great last couple of weeks breaking through to new highs. And on a weekly basis, I will go through this sector group and look for the chart patterns here to tell me what's going on. Now here we have the internet infrastructure sector. It's really run up probably too quickly. Looks to me like it's due for a pullback to the longer term upward trend line. But, the longer term trend remains up, and so that's a good place to be longer term, just maybe buy it on weakness. And so this is what I do every week, is I go through these charts and just get a quick idea of where there is strength, where there is weakness, and it can then help you tailor your trading strategies for the weeks ahead. And again, I'll just sort of cycle through these. This is the semiconductors. They kind of look like they're stuck in a trading range. Home builders look great after a very long time where the home builders have been the dog in the market. We're now getting this breakout from an ascending triangle this past week, and that should lead to a longer term upward trend higher. So hopefully some of you will take the time to register on tradingdesk.stockscores.com and use some of these sector groups that I've created inside the ChartWatch area. I hope that they help you. I hope that you've had a great week in the market ahead, and trade well.